Tailgate Tour. I am Dave Richmond. It's great to be here on Labor Day weekend to talk college football. We don't have the Pirates playing, but we do have other great teams. And Bubba, we got one of our favorites coming back on, one of our friends from a couple years ago starting with us.
Yeah, Dave, starting things off this morning. One of the games is actually taking place on Monday night. They'll have the stage to themselves. BYU traveling to Annapolis to take on the Midshipmen. And right now we're joined by Pete Medhurst, the play-by-play voice of Navy. We have a full hour plus planned. So we'll actually get the alternate perspective of BYU 24/7 Garrett McClintock here in just a few minutes, but welcome into the show, Pete.
Great to be with you guys. Happy New Year.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you, I'm happy, Pete, because thank you for coming on. I want to see how you're doing personally with all the COVID stuff, being that you're an announcer and everything. With a lot of it, we have some of our friends that are. I know that you have obviously the voice of Navy. We have a lot of friends that are certainly. That they're just doing things contract. They don't have a contract. In other words, freelancers. They're having to deal with that. Plus, with all the stuff with family and friends wearing a mask. I'm just the point I'm bringing up is I'm just happy that we're here today, not only talking to you, but we've been talking to a lot of people when there wasn't football, and lo and behold, here we are, Labor Day weekend, and we have football games. So I'm tickled to death to see you and to know that we're going to be talking about a football game for Labor Day night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, fortunate that I work for a great radio station in DC at 106.7 The Fan. And, been able to work from home, obviously. And that's been, want to thank the folks at Comrex for making unbelievable equipment that we can do that now. Makes our job a whole lot easier. Fortunately with our family, we've been, pretty good. I got two sons that are college basketball coaches. They've managed so far to keep from getting it. And, unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to go out on the road recruiting, and it's presented a lot of challenges for them. And, my 12-year-old daughter plays travel softball. We've been back at that, and I umpire that. I've been umpiring USSSA softball now for a few years, and we've been back at that since June. And, knock on wood, so far, so good in that regard. And, like you guys, I'm just, super excited that, we've got college football. The fact that Central Arkansas played last week and played again this week and didn't have to step away or anything like that. Keep your fingers crossed. We might eventually be able to get this season not only going, but maybe even complete the thing as well.
No question about it. It's great to think about that. And the one thing that comes to mind, and I'm going to bring it up, Kevin Warren and everybody at the Big Ten, of course, Larry Scott of the Pac-12. It's I understand where they're coming from, because it's obviously someone that works. I work in my day job in the healthcare industry, so I know the ramifications. I know how serious. I was telling you beforehand that we had a report on Thursday. Greenville is one of the top 10 outbreaks because of what happened with the ECU situation just a couple weeks ago, like 1,400 new cases or something like that. So it's crazy numbers. But at the same time, we want, to play college football season if we can do it safely. That's what we say. And all of us on this podcast, we have a lot of viewers, listeners, people on the street always asking me every day. I'm tired of hearing, Pete, the question, are we going to play? I have coworkers every single day. I'm passing them in the hall. I'm going to break, or I'm taking someone to an area of the hospital. They go, are we going to play college football? And I'm like, I'm not the czar. I'm not the commissioner. I really don't know. I hope so. But how do you feel about things? Are you feeling more confident today, knowing that your team is going to be playing Monday night? And we were worried about this scenario of where we would be teased, where it'll be like Wednesday or Thursday of this week. This is a couple weeks ago. We're thinking about how sad would it be that you get almost to the party, and then a couple of days before you go to the party, you find out, oh yeah, we can't have that party, meaning we can't have the start of really college football season.
Navy probably creates its own bubble. I mean, 4,400 students on campus probably creates a bubble atmosphere of its own. And obviously the players have talked about it. We've talked about it with the captains and other players in media interviews over the last couple of weeks. I mean, they understand the discipline that it's going to take to pull this off on their end. Now, the question's going to be, can the other schools that Navy is playing pull that off, because I think, BYU, again, that's an environment, very unique out there. And I think you've got a lot of mature young men. You've got some that are married. You've got guys that I think understand it. And they're probably going to be able to pull it off. But like you've talked about, the situation down there in the Greenville area, what's going to happen the first time Navy goes on the road? I mean, Navy's slated to play at Tulane coming up on September the 19th. What happens when you go on the road and then come back? I mean, those are all things that, in this environment, we'll just have to play out, and we'll see, where it goes. And you've got to trust the testing. I mean, we saw the Nationals up here go through it with Juan Soto. He missed the first part of the season because he was literally testing positive one day, negative the next day, positive one day, negative the next day. So you knew it was false positives, but you couldn't risk playing him and bringing him into the environment because you just didn't know. It could have been false negatives too. So, we're still in a very, very sensitive situation as it pertains to the trust of the testing. And, right now, that's basically what you're going to have to go by. If you test well coming back from a road game, then maybe things are okay.
Now, Pete, there at the Naval Academy, you referenced the unique atmosphere, and obviously you guys, Army and Air Force, are the ones that really are dealing with this. But give us the Cliff Notes version of the last 5 months in terms of what Coach Kenny Montalolo and his staff have been dealing with in terms of all the COVID-19 protocols and what they've been able to do or not able to do compared to a normal college or university.
I mean, basically, they've practiced. They did a lot of their conditioning, wearing masks every day, and they weren't taking any chances. So, I mean, obviously, like many people, they didn't have spring football in the traditional form like everybody else. A lot of all the kids went home. They were having Zoom. They finished the spring semester. Give you an idea of what our kids go through. We got some kids from Hawaii. I mean, we obviously crisscross. We have 27 states represented on our football roster, and some are in Hawaii. Well, if you have a class that starts at 9 o'clock Eastern time, that means you've got to be on the Zoom or the Google Meet at 3 a.m. Hawaii time to meet your class time. And we had young men and young women across the academy that were doing that. And, that's what was going on in the early days of this. And, of late, practice has been practice, and they've simply got to find a way to at the end of each practice, everybody's got to be sanitized and using the hand sanitizer during practice because of how everybody, touches the football. Puts a lot of onus on Greg Morgenthaler, our equipment manager, and his staff. I mean, that's a lot of extra work that they have to do as well. And, I think those are going to be the unsung heroes that we don't really think about in this college football season, is the equipment folks who are going to have to do 3 or 4 times as much work as they've ever had to do right now.
As far as the football game, what are your expectations for Monday night in Annapolis?
I mean, I expect it to look like Navy versus BYU. I trust both coaching staffs to have their players ready. Kenny Montalolo has never gone into a game not prepared with the mids. And, the question for us is going to be Dalen Morris. Obviously, he's taking over for Malcolm Perry. A record-setting offense from a year ago, but this is a young man that allows us to break tendencies. We can throw on first down, and this is a young man. I'll never forget when Ivan Jasper and I were watching his recruiting tape. This is a young man that can sling it 70 yards right on a line. So
wow.
we have the best depth at wide receiver we've ever had in the program. So not that we're going to throw it 10, 15 times a game. We're still going to run it down your throat as the initial game plan. But now we have a quarterback that can give us the opportunity to make big plays down the field, take advantage of Michael Cooper, Ryan Mitchell, Mark Walker, some terrific wide receivers for us.
No question about it. And that's interesting to hear that, because that can really keep the defense honest, can it? You not only do you have to worry about that option, but now you got to worry about now that the guy's got a cannon, like he's got an arm. He can make one of those X plays. He can make one of those plays that can, some of the games that might be really tight, all of a sudden they're expecting the option, and he puts a bomb down the field and game over.
Yeah, I mean, we were number one in the country in plays of 50 yards or more last year with 10. Most of those, of course, are on the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if we stuck a couple of those in the air this season. Our defense comes back, second year under Brian Newberry. Those guys are super excited to play for him and expand the package defensively this year. Our secondary is as good as it's ever been. We've got an NFL player at linebacker in Diego Fagot. So we've got a big, Mike Flowers has big shoes to fill up front for Jackson Pittman, who's one of the best nose guards in the nation last year. But, we're going up against a foe that's going to test us right away. I mean, Wilson, the quarterback for BYU, terrific player, a guy that can really, he's like a poor man's Malcolm in a way. 3rd and 9, you think you've got him, in the pocket and you're going to get off the field. And then all of a sudden he escapes, extends the play, makes a big play down the field or scrambles for 10 yards to keep the drive going. The thing that hurts BYU, clearly, Matt Bushman, maybe their best playmaker on offense, NFL tight end, blew out his Achilles just over a week ago. And you hate to see that because we love to compete against the best, and we hate to see people get hurt. But Matt Bushman's was going to be a bona fide star tight end in the NFL, and the Cougars will be missing him coming in. But the mids certainly can't, breathe a sigh of relief because they've got a lot more weapons and a big offensive line. And I think they will also try to be physical and run it down our throats. There's no question.
And no doubt. Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
Pete, you talk about the unique attack of the Naval Academy with that triple option, and that's something that is well documented how tough that is to prepare for. So much so that teams prepare for it early in camp when they're not playing Navy. They prepare for it in spring ball. So just talk about with the variables that we're dealing with this year, as far as practice time getting interrupted, and then also guys being out where you may have to play a guy that's 2nd or 3rd on the depth chart typically. And trying to have those individuals get off cut blocks and everything that is required to defeat Navy.
Oh, we've got 2 of the best offensive linemen in the American coming back in Peter Nesterwitz and Billy Honecker. Honecker's one of our tri-captains. Justin Self at center got some time last year. I mean, what better way to be an understudy than to Ford Higgins, who was as good a center as we've ever had. Look, I mean, we've got a couple of guys that are going to step in and play significant snaps for the first time. We'll see how they adapt. But, I mean, look, at our skill positions, we're fine. I mean, Jamal Carruthers and Nelson Smith is as good a B-back tandem as we've ever had at the fullback spot. A-backs, Chance Warren, who was terrific for us at wide receiver, scored running, throwing, receiving last year. I mean, he did it all for us. He's switching to slot backs, and we can take advantage of his great athletic skill. So you pair him now with Miles Fells, C.J. Williams, Carlinos AC. I mean, we can. Our coaches are unbelievable in recruiting. They go out and they find skilled people. The question is going to be. I mean, look, we play in a tough league. We talk about it all the time. That's the beauty of the American. We play in a tough league. So if you're not going to play Notre Dame in the opener, go find somebody else of a national caliber that's going to test you to make you ready for American Athletic Conference play. BYU's as good an opponent that was sitting out there. It's credit to Chet Gladchuck and BYU AD Tom Holmoe to be able to get that game put together quickly. ESPN coming to the table to televise it. But what better way to prep for your tough AAC schedule by playing an opponent the caliber of BYU? I mean, that's why we joined the American. We joined the American to play in a great league, have a great schedule, and compete for a conference championship. I mean, that's why we joined the league in the first place. We've recruited to try and compete against these teams. And right now, since joining the league, the Mids have the 3rd best record overall, 27-13 since joining the league. Only Temple and Memphis have been a couple of wins better.
And Pete, the very fact that I was going to ask you about, as far as the league is concerned, I know you and I were talking about beforehand. What you were talking about a great league, but you guys with Navy, I think you guys are have a good shot to compete for a championship. I don't really know. Obviously, with the way things are going to go this season, it's hard to really know. Yeah, that team is definitely the one that's going to win because of all the off the field issues that could affect it. But how do you feel about the Middies as far as winning the championship?
I mean, I think we've got as good a shot because we've got a lot of seniors, got a lot of people coming back to play, especially on the defensive side. But when you look at the league, I mean, look at the quarterbacks in our league. I mean, it's you're talking 6-7 teams deep with quality quarterback play in this league. I mean, your guy down there, Holton Ahlers, put up a 500-yard game last year. I mean, that's a young man I think is just going to get better and better. And I said it when East Carolina hired Mike. You know, it was going to take him some time to get the depth that he needed to play against these teams. But, I mean, what better guy to start things with than a quarterback that can go out any Saturday and make explosive plays the way Holton Ahlers can. ECU is not going to be a picnic this year for anybody to play. Tulane under Willie Fritz has been fantastic. No one has played as consistently better defensively than Tulane has. They've been outstanding. Their defensive linemen have been ridiculous against us through the years. So, and that's not even talking about the teams that everybody thinks at the top of the league. Look, everybody knows Desmond Ridder is going to be healthy for Cincinnati this year. I think it's going to make them better overall. Luke Fickell took over a bad cupboard. He quickly cleaned that out, and he's had 2 11-win seasons since then. Memphis not having Kenneth Gainwell, it hurts, but they've still got DeMonte Coxey, White at quarterback. I mean, they've still got weapons. They find skilled people. Ryan Silverfield takes over there for Mike Norvell. He's not coming in from the outside. He was there on the inside. So I don't expect any drop-off from Memphis. Central Florida is just oozing with athletes all over the place. SMU's got Shane Buechele back. I mean, we can go on and on about every team in the league. I mean, you can make a case almost for everybody, but certainly at the top of this league has consistently proven itself. Go ask Mississippi what they think about playing against Memphis. It's been no picnic for them, and they're right down the road in the powerful SEC. So, our league continues to prove itself outside the league, and obviously the games we've had inside the league continue to bring good football to the table. People want to keep televising us. And, you look at our quote G5 league compared to everybody else, and, top to bottom, it's just not even close.
Speaking of televising, Pete, this is a game that was, of course, added to the schedule very late in the game. But Reese Davis and the ESPN crew on Kirk Herbstreit will be at Navy Marine Corps Stadium on Monday night. So just talk about this opportunity for Coach Ken's ball club to have such tremendous exposure on a national scale.
Yeah, I mean, obviously our games with Notre Dame are on national TV. They're on NBC or CBS in the past. Army-Navy is on CBS in front of millions of people each and every season. All of our home games are on CBS Sports Network, and obviously the American package is on ESPN. So, look, I mean, we cherish each opportunity we have to put our football product on TV and show the Naval Academy and show, the college football world what our school and what our football team is all about. So the bright lights, and literally they will be bright because it's a night game. The bright lights aren't going to bother either Navy or BYU. They have been this, they've been in this perspective and under these lights for a long time. I think both teams are going to be excited about it. But again, as I said, it's a great opportunity for the Naval Academy to showcase itself and for the American Athletic Conference, again, to showcase itself against a nationally known opponent. Just the kind of work that they've done here through the years. And it'll be another great opportunity with Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, and Allison Williams in the house coming up on Monday night.
And BYU is one of those teams we were talking about with a national flavor. I mean, they brought a ton of fans to Dowdy Ficklen just a few years ago, and definitely would love. I mean, if the situation was right, we were talking about this pre-show to have them part. Maybe one day, Pete, they will be a conference game and not a non-conference game. But that's a whole other. I know another show to speak. By the way, I want to mention to you another kid to watch out for since you're the play-by-play voice. Give you a little scoop here. Mason Garcia is a kid. I don't know if you've heard of him. He is actually a first-year kid out of the Myrtle Beach area. Great quarterback for East Carolina, and 6'4". He's a specimen. A great arm. I know there's a lot of kids that have great arms for D1, but he's really special. If he keeps his grades good and stays out of trouble, obviously, like a lot of the kids right now dealing with COVID, but he's one that's really, really special. So we'll keep an eye on him. After Holton will be a senior next year in 21. So just keep an eye out for Mason Garcia.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, look, and that's what I said about Mike taking over. And eventually, he's going to rebuild the depth there that they need to be a consistent. I mean, look, he came into the American basically, with a half-loaded gun against guys running around with, loaded cannons. So he's quickly reloading there. And, the guy's track record speaks for itself. And we know East Carolina's played plenty of great football before. And it's not going to take Mike, I think, very long to get them back into significant contention in this league. Like I said, I don't think they're going to be any kind of a picnic for anybody to play this year. So, again, you better – we say it all the time, just like 2 years ago when Navy had the down season. You better get Navy while they were down then, because they're not going to stay down long. They rebounded and had an 11-win season. Right now, you better get East Carolina while they're down, because they're not going to be down very long under Mike's leadership there. And I just think that's going to make our league even that much stronger. Think about this. East Carolina and South Florida, the teams we're talking about at the bottom of our league in 10th and 11th right now in most of the polls. And both of those programs have winning traditions that you can speak about, with good winning football, in their cupboards.
No doubt about it. Pete, it's going to be very exciting on Monday nights. I can't believe it's here, college football, really the opening weekend. I'm happy that we're here and to the party, and hopefully that we'll see if you have a celebration on a Monday night for sure.
Just the fact that we get a kickoff will be celebration enough. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. I'm excited to watch Army and Middle Tennessee coming up here in a little while. I love the sport, and I love the kids that play it. Many of them, as we know, this will be the last time they put on their football uniforms. A lot of them don't play football beyond this spot, and I just love the atmosphere of what college football represents. Love coming down to your place, missing it badly. Missing my trip to Sup Dogs that I always make down there to see my good friend Brett Oliverio. He worked with us at my radio station for an awful long time.
Oh, wow.
And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was producer of the #1 rated morning show in D.C. for a long time before he took over upon his brother's passing. And, they do a great job there. And I know they're, big thing there in Greenville, and also they're one in Chapel Hill. But that's the thing I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss coming down and being part of that atmosphere, because that's something that we enjoy from the PA guy going, "Arg, Pirates," all that stuff. That's what we're missing right now. We're going to miss this year in a lot of these environments, but at least these kids are going to get a chance to go out and play a few more games. And look, for the seniors and the juniors who've been in the programs 3 years, this is opportunity to put some tape out there for the 2021 NFL draft. So a lot of things, a lot of positives, and hopefully this Saturday goes as well as last Saturday's Austin Peay Central Arkansas game, and we can keep playing on a weekly basis.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we can have you back on mid-season, or certainly for the Army-Navy game.
You got it. Glad to come on anytime with you guys. Always appreciate the conversation.
No doubt about it, Pete. Appreciate you, and look forward to Monday night. All right, that's Pete Medhurst, the voice of the Navy midshipman. And Bubba, there you are. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. What's more appropriate than doing a college football preview show from a baseball stadium?
The Cannonball. I tell you what, that stadium is gorgeous. I was there. What was it? Late May, in Kannapolis. I think it was late May, and the center field has. I saw people. I was not at the bar, but I was sitting near the bar waiting for Bubba, so I could hang out with some of them there and check out the ballpark. And we walked around there at Kannapolis, a great stadium. The Cannonballers love it, and I can't wait for them to be able to play. Bubba, I know there's a guy that's can't wait for BYU to play, right?
Yeah, we just got the Navy perspective, of course, with Pete Medhurst, the play-by-play voice of the midshipman. Now we're going to get the BYU perspective on Monday night's game. I'm very excited to be rejoined by Garrett McClintock. Garrett joined us here a few weeks back. Garrett, welcome back into the program.
It's good to be here. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Glad to have you on, and we were hoping that we could have a game with you guys, but we were just talking with Pete. It would be great to see BYU to be a conference mate. We're not going to push you guys into that. Obviously, I understand your deal, but certainly we love BYU, and glad to have you on, and glad to have a college football season. I didn't think we would get to this part. I was more confident back in the summertime, and the last couple of weeks has been where we kind of bummed in the Greenville area.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we got here too. I was a little iffy on whether it would happen. And there's some days it seemed like it was full steam ahead, and then others I was 100% sure that everything was going to get called off. But we're here. There's games today. We'll see if I think part of the reason that the ECU game didn't happen is because of kind of the unsurety and needing, you've already seen your first game pushed back, right? And we've already seen like the TCU SMU game has gotten canceled. And so I think a lot of it is, our athletic directors kind of waiting and seeing. Like, I think from the American side, don't want to fill up all those bye gaps in case you need to reslot a conference game because of a breakout, or and where we're at, it's we could call up a Conference USA team and get another bye game, but we'd rather kind of take that gamble and say, okay, hopefully towards November things are good and we can add ECU and USF to the schedule, whatever, and if both teams, if there's two teams that even 2 weeks before have an open game, then I think it's just a phone call away. And I think we'll see some shuffling of non-conference games even mid-season this year, just because 2020 is 2020.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty crazy situation that you guys were in, Garrett. Being down to 3 games and now back up to 8. As we were going off the air, you may have heard my question to Pete, just talking about obviously BYU's accustomed to playing on a big stage. I'm not saying that, but with this late edition of the Navy game, Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit and company are going to be on hand Monday night. So an excellent way to start the season for the Cougars. Yeah,
it really is. Especially, it's always great to be on the mothership on mainline ESPN, and and getting their biggest staff. It's always fun to be. It's like we play on ESPN all the time, but it's usually we never have it's the primetime matchup, right? Like this is if it wasn't for everything going on, like Reese and Kirk Herbstreit, they'd probably be calling like the Oregon Auburn game or something like that. It would have been this is a very big deal for both programs to be the number one game over the course of an entire weekend, and that's never happened before. I think for either team, well, I guess Army Navy is their own separate beast, but during a normal week, that's never happened for either team where it's been the number one, like clear cut best matchup of the entire weekend. And so it really is, it's exciting. And, like you said, we were cut down to, we had 2 games with an FCS game. And so that is still happening, playing North Alabama. There was a lot of, they're committed and they're playing 4 games this fall to try to bring in some money. But it's kind of worked out to where in November we've got Navy this week and then a bye and then Army the following week. And so it's at least we get the option games kind of mashed up together and don't have too much of a change. But we'll see if we throw SMU onto the schedule for next week, which who knows, that could happen for all we, with their cancellation against TCU, then they could throw things for a loop. But it's I'm happy that we have 8 games. It's obviously not ideal. But if we were, in a different league, if we're still in Mountain West, then we'd be making less money and have less exposure and have 0 games right now. So I would rather play 8 games against, a couple of FCS school, an FCS school, and some of the lower end of the Sun Belt and Conference USA than be sitting at home all fall.
And by the way, Garrett, we only have 9 games, so we can schedule a game with you.
Okay, there we go. So I think I'm fairly confident that with the American, it's just waiting to see, okay, can we get through September and what this looks like? And are we going to need, because you have some schools, I believe like Temple can't even practice, right? Like that was a game that our fan base, a lot of people like, hey, it works. We've never played them before. It's a good matchup. But then, if you have teams that can't practice and you're going to have to reschedule conference games, from the American perspective, I understand why you need to leave those open until, I think November is where we could see some shuffling going on, or at least the back half of October.
Yeah, you actually read my mind, Garrett, as far as that SMU TCU cancellation, the battle for the Iron Skillet. And we have Billy Embody from SMU's 24/7 site joining us here in the next few minutes following our interview with you. So we'll discuss that with him. And then, just taking a look at things, Pete Medhurst was talking about the unique environment that exists at BYU as far as you have some older players, guys who may potentially be married, probably – generally speaking, certainly a more controlled atmosphere, and we'll just put it that way, than a lot of college campuses. So where has things been with the Cougars in terms of the COVID numbers, guys testing positive and things of that nature?
I'm not sure what the exact numbers are. So the university has been reporting overall student numbers, but it's been pretty low. And so it's, obviously it in Provo, you're not going to have as big of, there are no fraternities, there are no sororities. You're not going to have, 500 people at a house party on a Saturday night. That's going to cause a huge problem. And, like you said too, with a lot of the players, being a year or two older, maybe for their class, and a lot of them being married and having, I think probably close to half the roster is married. And probably of those that are married, probably another half of them, so maybe you're talking about like a third of the roster are, fathers. And so they're not going to be going out, and their life off the field is very different, to where it's a lot more conducive to avoiding that spread. But so I think in terms of COVID, like they're following the same protocols. I think that the AAC announced that they're doing. Obviously, everyone has to wear a mask when they go on the road. It's like the entire equipment staff team, everything. It's like they're a mini bubble for that weekend whenever they are traveling. Players are getting tested 3 days a week. And so it's, as long as you can stay ahead of it, then I think things should be very well. And it's, the schools and programs that are committed to doing that, I think it can still be a very safe environment for the athletes.
No question about it, Garrett. With BYU and having this big game on Monday night against Navy, it's certainly a great thing, because we were wondering, with everything going on with the conferences, with the power leagues that have conference-only schedules and all that, it's great to see a brand name matchup. I think you can definitely argue that both BYU and Navy deserve to be considered power league teams. I know that I always am biased with the American, but I think we're a power league, and with you guys with BYU, I mean, you're, as we talked about last time, you guys are definitely a brand name in college football.
Yeah, I definitely think that American has separated itself from the rest of the G4. And even if I mean, I don't think that they, when the next round of expansion comes, you're not going to go back to 12. It's going to go to 14. And so I think that may, even though BYU is sitting pretty with ESPN right now in our own deal, it's, that may kind of force the hand a little bit. Because if you take Boise, Air Force, and BYU to get to 14, then that definitely is a power league, and there's a clear separation between that league and the rest of things. And even if you look at the computer rankings last year, the American finished higher than the AAC when you looked at the league as a whole. And so if you can kind of make it through COVID unscathed, then, and at least they're playing, whereas you have, 2 power leagues not playing, it's a good opportunity to pick up more fans and more support and, boost those the TV numbers will obviously be higher this year, but see how they maintain next year once the Big Ten and Pac-12 come back. But I think it's a great opportunity, for obviously BYU to continue to play and for the American. And it's exciting. We've never played Army before, haven't played Navy since like 1980 something. I don't remember what the last date was. So it's been a long time since we've played either of those. And so it's always fun. It's always fun to watch an option team every once in a while, just because it's so rare, but it'll be an interesting and a good matchup for 2 good programs.
Yeah, certainly not many defensive coordinators around the country that would be envious of the challenge that your defensive staff there at BYU has.
No, our defensive coordinator got asked about it and said, he's like, I have no experience at all defending this. So it was not a good soundbite, but it's hard to blame him, because there really isn't, any, unless you're coaching Pee-wee ball where you've got some 7-year-olds running the option. It's like no coordinator would have that experience unless you regularly play one of the academies.
Right. Yeah. It's certainly something to keep an eye on Monday nights. And one of the things I was talking with Pete Medhurst about a few minutes ago was just, I mean, that's an extreme challenge, as we're saying, in a normal year. I mean, when you have spring ball, when you have a typical fall camp where you don't have all these pauses that a lot of programs are having, but to be facing such an attack this year, and yes, they're potentially facing the same thing, but they're of course accustomed to running what they run, and they've done it for so long now that they're entrenched in it. But will definitely be interesting to see teams going against Navy, not only BYU, but how those teams defend the triple option with all the interruptions to preparation.
Yeah, and it's luckily BYU hasn't had any interruptions and had to do any pausing of workouts or anything like that. So we do have had we are lucky to have had that continuity, but we are putting in a new defensive scheme this year and going to more of a 4-2-5 look. If you look at the depth chart for this game, they actually listed 4 different linebacker positions and 6 different DB positions. So there's going to be a lot of different looks, and they're going with a new scheme with the intent to be more aggressive and kind of, with where recruiting has ended up and kind of the makeup of the roster right now. So the pro side of that is we could see a lot of things and have a lot of creativity that, coming that isn't on film yet. And, maybe other teams don't know what to expect, but the downside of it is, are we trying to maybe do too much? And if you have too many things going on, do you have too many packages that you can't really master any one of them? And but really, defending the option, it really comes down to just not having an ego and just doing your job every play and not trying to chase anything. And so it's not complicated to defend it, but it takes a lot of patience and a lot of, just being committed to doing your job and not thinking you saw something or whatever, which is difficult in the moment.
Yeah, like you're saying, assignment football, it's always said, and that's one of those phrases you always hear when you hear teams talk about defending the option. And it's one thing to know how to defend it, but being able to be physical and, take on the cut blocks and all the things that you have to do to be able to defeat it. And playing disciplined football, it's an entirely different matter.
Definitely.
So, last question for you as we're looking at this matchup. Kalani Sitake's club a couple years ago really struggled on the offensive side, but last year is definitely a step in the right direction. So just talk about this club and what are some of the things we should keep an eye on with the Cougars in terms of the offensive side?
Yeah, from the offensive perspective, I think the biggest, so they moved the ball and actually had the offense finished number 26 or 27th in overall total yards per game last year, but struggled mightily in scoring and were in the hundreds in red zone percentage. And so once the field got short is where we struggled. And so needing to open up those holes and really finishing out drives is where the offense needs to take a huge jump. And that's, that I think last year we saw the whole offseason, the staff was saying we need to do better at getting chunk plays, and they focused on that in the offseason. And there was a big improvement in this. So I think pushing in and going forward with, focusing on the red zone scoring is where the offense and what the offense needs to make a huge jump. This week in practice, we just lost our best offensive playmaker in Matt Bushman, who is a senior tight end who was on the Mackey watch list, one of the best tight ends in the country, who went down with a non-contact Achilles rupture in practice. And so that was difficult. Luckily tight end is one of those positions that if you have a body that can create a matchup, then you can, or a mismatch against a linebacker, then you can have good production there. But it always sucks when you lose someone of that caliber. And so that's really from the offense. I think it's needing to be able to run the ball effectively when the field gets short. And we need to replace the tight end, and then just need one receiver to step up and kind of take some pressure off of that. And then defensively going into this game, it all kind of comes down to nose tackle Kairos Tonga, who's last year he played at about 350. He's down to around 315, 320 and looks really well. And he looks really good and is looking fit, and he's going into his senior year very hungry. And, it really comes down to him. If he's going to get double teamed every play on Monday night, and if he can, control his gap and not chase anything, and if he can control the dive on his own, then I think we'll be in good shape. But last year against the run was something that the defense struggled majorly with. And so it's not a great matchup if you look at last year, but hopefully with a new scheme and some patience, then we can at least keep them in check. And I think BYU ends up winning it. The money's coming in on the Cougars. It started off as Navy was a 2.5 point favorite, and I just looked and it's down to BYU as a 2 point favorite. So it's a 4.5 point swing is pretty large, and the total has dropped by 7 points as well since the opening line. So I think it's going to be probably an ugly, low scoring affair, since with the weird off season and not being able to do as much as teams want to do. But I think BYU ends up winning it in kind of a 24-17 or 20-14 type game.
So I know last time we talked to you, Garrett, that you were in the Charlotte area. Are you guys moving to Arizona? Have you done that yet?
So I'm moving 3 weeks from today. I will be moving to Arizona. So I'll be, I guess on Thursday, so in 2.5 weeks, I'll be sending the rest of my family, and then I'll be driving out with most of our stuff in a couple weeks.
Wow, that's impressive. And you're trying to do the 24/7 site as well.
Yep, it's been busy. It's a fun time, but it's definitely trying to hang up. And we have a 5-week old at home as well, so it's been pretty hectic month and a half.
Well, thank you so much for coming on with us. I know short notice, but we want to do something special. Our new show, Inside the Slant, there with college football. Glad to just have college football. We're excited today. It's kind of like a kid at a candy store to have college football, and good luck to you guys on Monday night.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks to Garrett McClintock there, and Bubba. And now we bring in first time a guest on the show. We're very excited to have on.
Yeah, East Carolina, of course, was scheduled to play these guys last weekend. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Hopefully, it will take place at some point this season after being bumped from the September 12th date. Welcome into the program. Certainly no stranger to the Thundering Herd from WSAZ and Huntington, Keith Morehouse. Keith, appreciate you joining us.
How are you, Keith? Welcome into the show.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I couldn't hear Bubba for a second. How are you guys? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. No doubt about it. We were hoping to have the game, obviously, this past weekend with Marshall, and then it was supposed to be next weekend. We were disappointed, obviously. We know the special tie there. Looking forward to hopefully I know when from 24/7 Sports, Hoist the Colors.net, our ECU site for 24/7, we had Stephen Igo. He put up there that the game was canceled and about open dates, and Coach Mike Houston said not yet. So in other words, to add the game maybe I'm thinking maybe December. I don't know, who knows, but I didn't know you have a lot more insight on the Marshall side of things. I wanted to ask you that before we talk about your game. But what do you think about would that be a game that we could move to December, or how is the Marshall schedule stacking up that we could do that?
Well, guys, I think that's probably the only way is because it would be the conference championship weekend, and if Marshall and East Carolina aren't in the conference championship, that maybe that first weekend in December is the only alternative. I know Mike Hamrick wants to play it, and I know that East Carolina wants to play it as well. It's been in the works for a while. It was going to be, week 0, August 29th. It was going to be, nationally televised, and the significance of it, I think we all know, in that 50 years ago they played the night that Marshall's plane crashed. And so they want to get that game in for a lot of reasons. But, with the schedule and COVID and all the things the hoops that the ADs have to jump through, it may not happen. But I think they're holding on to that possibility that it could be, an early December date if neither team is in its conference championship.
No question about it. And it's a very special game. And I know that that's going to be one that we're going to keep our fingers crossed. We only have 9 games now, so we're praying that we can get that. Keith, I don't know if you know, but I read a national article a couple of days ago. I was saying in the beginning of the show with Pete Medhurst of Navy that the very fact that Greenville, when East Carolina came back in with the students, we had a huge outbreak, and it forced us into the top 10 as far as outbreaks in the country. So that's what I'm concerned about now, is praying that we have no fans until September 26th against UCF. That was announced in the last few days. So now we're at a point where we're praying we can get that game in. And then, that's the thing that's tough as you play a top 25 team. Literally, that's your first game. And they're going to have looks like they have a game against that would be against Georgia Tech in a couple weeks to open up the season for them.
Yeah, it's I feel bad for all these ADs that have to do this. I mean, it's really, really difficult, and you want to get your games in, you want to keep kids safe and healthy, and it's just a shame it happened this year for Marshall and ECU just because of the significance of the year. But you have to do the right thing for your program, and that's keeping people healthy and making sure they're safe. And so I really wanted to play it for a lot of sentimental reasons, and they were going to have, a gathering of families that lost people that night in the crash down there, and some special things were going to go on. And East Carolina's always been, so great at remembering and honoring that tragedy and the people we lost. So if it can happen, it'd be great. And I think that they won't stop trying until there's just no alternative. So hopefully, they can look down the road and get that thing going.
No question about it. In fact, Bubba, you and I were, when Bubba came a part of the podcast in July a couple years ago, Keith, one of the first things he and I talked about is I told him, I said, hey, I'm leaving work one night and I said, hey, and then one day I said, we've got to do something special for Marshall because in 2 years when we do this podcast, it's going to be the 50th anniversary, something that I know that's very important to me because I think because of that relationship we have, I think the fact that we're a regional opponent. And then I was going to tell you, Keith, that I don't know how the Marshall kids feel, but our kids, the guys that have graduated, told us outside of NC State, Marshall is probably their favorite game as far as a rivalry. And I was not surprised as far as how important that Marshall game is, but just surprised of how big it is to them. And they weren't anywhere around 1970.
Yeah, I've always told people when Marshall got into Conference USA, and I've been down to Greenville several times for games. I've always said, to me, it's the biggest atmosphere in the league when they were in Conference USA. I thought it had an SEC kind of feel to it, and it always felt like that when Marshall and ECU got together. And even when they came up to Huntington, I remember Marshall actually played one of its better games against ECU and beat them when they had Chris Johnson. And I just, there's a feeling about the atmosphere down there that's unlike anything else that Conference USA had at that time. And so for just those sentimental and historic reasons, it's a great game. But just on a competitive level, it just has a different feel. And really, to be honest, guys, to know that that's the very same field where that team played in 1970. I've been in that press box, and of course, it's been renovated and it's a beautiful stadium. But to be in the very same footprint as the old stadium where that team played is really a surreal experience. And so I don't think any Marshall fan takes it for granted. And I certainly don't. So if there's any way to make that game happen, and Mike Hamrick, Marshall's athletics director, told me earlier this year, he said, if we play one game this year, I'd like it to be East Carolina. So the emphasis on that up here is a big deal. And so hopefully maybe they can come together and make it happen somehow.
And we know him very well being the director of athletics from 96 to 2004. Is it special for him too to be a former athletic director at one school, and now it's your alma mater that you're the athletic director of as well, that you're playing, and then on the significance of 1970? I mean, that with the plane crash, I know Mike very well. I knew him at that time pretty well. I was 23 at the time when he started as a young broadcaster, and he was really funny. I was telling stories. He used to, I don't know if you know this, Keith, Mike Hamrick is one of the only athletic directors we've ever had. He did not only a show, because Dave Hart, the previous the athletic director in the early 90s for us, did, but Mike used to do a show every Wednesday night on our flagship station, and he would actually take calls, and people would ask back then about the baseball stadium didn't have lights that worked very well and different things down to the minutia. He was very, I'll give him credit. He took a lot of heat on certain stuff, and he wasn't afraid to come on every Wednesday night and talk to the fans. That was really cool.
Yeah, Dave, he does that up here too. He's very accessible, and if you have a question, he doesn't duck any questions, and he's really open and honest with fans, and so that part of it is important, when you're on our business. But Mike, obviously Mike was down there, and Mike was a part of the Thundering Herd. He played for Marshall 3 or 4 years after the crash, and so he was on that part of that foundation that they had to build back up to get that program going. So he has a definite affinity for both programs. And I remember talking to Mike back when Marshall played ECU in the GMAC Bowl when David Garrard and Byron Leftwich were the quarterbacks. You guys may remember that one, 64-61 in double overtime. It was 38-8 at halftime. But Mike was real receptive back then to that game. And it's one of those things, guys, you don't even have to mention the significance for East Carolina, because up here it's embedded in Marshall's football past. And so anytime those two can get together, I think it's a significant game. And Mike has a real fond spot in his heart for Greenville and East Carolina, and of course now Marshall is alma mater. So there are a lot of ties there that bind, and I hope for that sake we get to play it at some point.
Keith, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right. It's one of the beauties of broadcasting from a public venue here. They have the music cranked up here at the local minor league ballpark this morning, the new Kannapolis Cannonballer Stadium. But just wanted to make sure before I went ahead with my question. But taking a look at the Thundering Herd and the I wanted to kind of elaborate on what you and Dave were discussing. So many guys that we've had on our 50 Pirates and 50 Days series from Pirates from a variety of eras, they just talking about how special those East Carolina Marshall matchups were, and they said it was right there with Southern Miss.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, Bubba, it's like I said, it's just got a cool feel to it, and the times that I was down there, I was down there the year that they were releasing the movie, and they had dedicated that plaque in the stadium, which I just thought was a fantastic gesture by East Carolina, and just to show that sympathy and to always have that game, and that I was just to be on that field where those guys walked, and whether they play it or not, I think I told you, Bub, I'm coming down. I'm working on a 50th anniversary piece for our TV station in November, an hour special on just the significance of the anniversary. And so I'm coming down, and I'm going to be there anyway. So I hope to see some of Greenville's best and talk to some of the players who were in the game and do some things down there that commemorate the game and where Marshall was. And again, just a special bond, and you can't. It's just there. It always will be. It's been memorialized in that movie, and of course, it's been memorialized in print and everywhere else. So the relationship between Greenville and Huntington is pretty stout, and I hope it goes on forever. And I think it will.
And Keith, I was going to tell you that when we had Skip Holtz and we finally made it back to a bowl game, the Papa John's.com bowl, where they didn't have any pizza, but I'm still sore about that. But anyway, we were not prepared for a tailgate like we wanted, because we both said, yeah, they'll have pizza down there. But anyway, Birmingham was an amazing city. Loved it. The night before the game, my buddy and I, before the bowl game, we went to see We Are Marshall, and oh my gosh, I own that movie, DVD, Blu-ray. I mean, I don't have obviously VHS, but I have a different formats of the movie and on digital. I love that movie so much, and we wanted to come up to Huntington ourselves to do a special with you. Hopefully we can do something there with you, but definitely in Greenville. I don't know if COVID we can or not. I hope we can drive up there even if it's for a day or something, but it's something very special to us. And I know that with Bubba, we're trying to do everything I can. It's kind of like herding cats with having full-time jobs. We're dads. We got a lot going on.
Yeah, it would be great if you guys did. I don't even know, every year they do the memorial on November 14th. That happens to be a game day. Marshall's supposed to play Middle Tennessee that day at noon. So if the game goes on, that memorial will be held in the morning. And so that's normally an afternoon ceremony. But if you get a chance to see it, it's very poignant, and they do it it's really well done. And yeah, we could definitely show you around and show you some of the sites and take you on a little tour of campus. But this COVID thing's got everybody all out of whack. But, regardless, I tell people, regardless of whether there's a game or not, there's going to be a ceremony. There's going to be the 50th anniversary. And that relationship between these two schools is a tight one. So, yeah, if you can make it up here, that'd be great, guys. I would definitely welcome you. We could make sure that you got everything you need up here.
Hey, Bubba, you want to do a road trip?
I'm always down for a road trip, Dave. But earlier, you guys were talking about Mike Hamrick. What a tremendous job he's done of salvaging this schedule. He had a tremendous schedule in place, taking on the likes of Boise State and Pittsburgh. I think at least one, if not both of those, were coming to Edwards Stadium. Mm-hmm. And then you also now to be able to revive a series like App State at the last minute. Old SoCon foes and rivals. I remember going to, I guess it was either the 96 or 97 game when Eric Kresser was playing quarterback, and and he found Randy Moss in his green and white candy striped socks on about a 75-yard post route at Kid Brewer Stadium, and silenced the crowd there in Boone. But just talk about the job that Mike Hamrick did with the schedule.
Yeah, you guys are right. I mean, we had talked about it with Mike. He thought, and I think he's right, it was probably Marshall's best home schedule ever. I mean, to get Pitt and Boise State and Huntington, also have the trip to East Carolina, and also they were going to play Ohio in non-conference action. So it was really set up to be a special year, and that's the shame of it, because I even think they had a gathering, a setup with Bobby Bowden was going to come to town and do some things up here for the anniversary. At one point, in fact, Bobby told me in Greenville the night before the GMAC Bowl, he was offered the Marshall job before the crash. if you guys think back and remember, he was a coach at West Virginia University. He's portrayed in the movie. But he said, yeah, I was offered the job, but Marshall at that time wasn't, the football program was struggling. So I didn't think it was the right fit for me. But yeah, they had a great schedule all set up, and Mike had to go jump through some hoops. Appalachian State, obviously they're a top 25 team last year. They have really, I think of them, and I think of Marshall, and you think of Boise, teams that have kind of risen up past the level of FCS, what back then was 1AA, and really made themselves something. And Appalachian State has done a great job with that, and they come in here, and that's going to be a tough game. So to get them, Eastern Kentucky, who they played today, they had to cobble together a schedule. Their league isn't even playing, and they've got an 8-game schedule, and they leave Huntington and then go to Morgantown next week and play West Virginia. So kudos to Walt Wells, their coach, to get their schedule. And, I think you guys, all of us who cover and love football, I'm just glad to see it. And I think we're lucky every time you get to see a game. And I don't think we'll ever take it for granted now. So however many games the schedule brings out, I think it's a bonus and a benefit. We all should appreciate it some.
No question about it. And Keith, how can people find your work? Obviously, you're a legend there in Huntington, and your dad as well. How can people follow you? We obviously can't wait to meet you in person, if it's in Greenville and or Huntington. But how can people follow you during the week, or certainly see your work?
Yeah, WSAZ.com is our website. SAZ is in Zoo, Sam Alpha Zoo.com, and we'll have our work on there. I hope to put that special maybe online too when it's finished. And just Twitter, it's at Keith Morehouse, KeithMorehouse, and we try to put a lot of our stuff out there too. So yeah, we're proud of what we do up here at the station, and it's been a lifelong, really my whole adult life really kind of covered Marshall and watching them come from where they were at the bottom, the depths of a program that almost ceased existing, to what they've done with and when I was doing TV games for Marshall, that I started the year Randy Moss started at Marshall. You mentioned Eric Kressler, Bubba. Those two were together in '96, and then Chad Pennington took over in '97. And that run that I did for 8 years on TV was, I don't know that I even appreciate it, but the games that I did with Sonny Randall, old Sonny Randall used to play in the NFL, was a fantastic wideout. The games we did on TV, Marshall was 50-4. And wow. I tell this story all the time. When my dad got here, Marshall was a basketball school. Danny D'Antoni, who there now is their coach, was a graduate assistant. His brother Mike, of course, coach of the Rockets. They were Marshall basketball legends, and the football program was struggling. And so my dad did 17 games on the radio before Marshall won a football game. I did 18 games on TV before they lost one. That's the difference in the eras. So it's not lost on all of us, the program and how it's come from disaster to where it is now. So yeah, we definitely appreciate the opportunity to cover it and to be around it for sure.
And Keith, before we let you go, also I told Bubba he's watched, I believe, but on YouTube, that public television special that was done about the crash is phenomenal. I had tears in my eyes. I've watched it at least 3 times several months ago, and it was really touching. So I can't think the actual title of it.
Ashes to Glory. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes, Ashes to Glory. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, they did a lot of work on that, and the people, the movie makers, when they came in, they wanted to make sure they told the story with reverence and dignity, and that's all we asked of them. Look, I remember talking to one of the producers saying, "Look, you make a good movie, that'd be great. You make a bad movie, you go back to Hollywood, and we live here." So they were reverential with how they treated it and with dignity and told the story, and I think we were all appreciative of how they did that.
Awesome stuff. Can't wait to meet you and look forward to having a Greenville. We'll take you around to some barbecue places when you're here. I don't know if you like barbecue, but
there's nothing like North Carolina barbecue for sure. I'll give you guys a shout when I come down. I haven't set it up yet, but once I do, I'll definitely let you know.
All right, Keith, thank you so much. Appreciate you, man, and look forward to having a great college football season. Thanks for spending some time with us. Enjoyed the visit.
Thank you guys for having me. Take care of yourselves.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Well, another great guest coming up, Bubba. It's an action-packed show, and very excited to have this guy on, author of a new book, and look forward to having him on, right, Bubba?
Yeah, this guy's a Greenville resident. certainly follows the East Carolina program very closely, but his new book is about former East Carolina offensive coordinator and current Oklahoma head coach Lincoln Riley. Welcome into the show.
Hey, how y'all doing for having me?
Absolutely. Very excited about the book. Congratulations. I know it's doing well, and people are talking about it. A lot of buzz about it. Certainly, Lincoln Riley, man, we could talk several hours about what the impact he had on East Carolina, and certainly and the fact that we were talking about this the other night. Was he 27 when he started at East Carolina as offensive coordinator? Somewhere
I think he might have been 26.
26. Okay.
And I know he was looking like a ghost. I got to figure out my lighting in the office. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think 26 when he first got started here.
Yeah, it's amazing, and he's had an unbelievable. I mean, you wrote a book about it. I could see your book becoming a movie.
Yeah, thanks.
Because it really, because it's a really incredible story. If you think about where he was starting out, then he comes at Texas Tech. He comes here. He's so young, and I remember people talking, and I don't think it's a secret. I don't know if you probably know this, Brandon, but I remember people going, "What in the world are we doing having an offensive coordinator 26 years old? That's crazy." And look how Ruffin McNeil was a lot smarter than people give him credit.
All right, I lost my audio here. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
What's going on?
You got me, Brandon? Brandon, if you can't hear us, I'm try signing out and coming back in.
Can't hear you guys. No.
How about now? Can you hear me?
I'm gonna hop out, hop back in.
Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, we'll see if we can get him back. Some technical difficulties there. Brandon seen the author of Sooner, and we'll have him back sooner than later, right, Bubba?
Yeah, I thought. Okay, here he is.
Let's see if we can. Hey, can you hear us now?
Yeah. Happened a couple of times earlier too. It was like I'd been here for a minute, and then it would just the audio would disappear. It was fine. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, yeah. No, it's I mean, people when Lincoln first started here, they were definitely skill, wondering what was going on, who this young kid was, and he won people over pretty quickly though. It's just they ended up having just such an incredible few years with him there, and man, Ruff. And it was just, I mean, I was a student at ECU when they first started here. It was just, I remember it being so much fun.
Okay, Brandon, you kind of leading me into my next question there. You're talking about being a student at ECU. So just tell folks briefly about your background and then how that idea to write this book Sooner about Lincoln Riley and his tremendous rise through the coaching ranks came about.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dave, you said earlier it's kind of like a movie. That's what really made me want to write the book. I had written a story about him for Bleacher Report in 2017. First got named head coach at OU, and just had a lot of good extra stuff from that story left over. And it even mentioned him in passing at the time. This could make a pretty good book. And he laughed because he felt like he was too young and all that. Which I mean, he's young to have written about him, but it's just from him being like this kid just dreaming about being a football player in West Texas to, I mean, just went through a whole bunch of different stuff to end up where he is now. That's what pushed me through it. I just thought that would be an incredible story, an inspiration story, just like my favorite movies and some things like that. Thankfully, that's what I feel like it's turned into.
No question about it, Brandon. Obviously,
again, I don't know what's going on.
All right, you want to hop out and then come right back? I don't know if you can.
Let me try.
How about? Maybe we can hop out and then hop back on again.
I can hear you now. Maybe it was on mine. Like the headphones, I think kept. All
right, normally headphones help. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I can hear you now. So
now, are you on? You're on your computer, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Typically, if we have any issues at all, it's on cell phone. So I don't know.
But anyway, sorry about that. I'm here.
No problem. Obviously, we don't want to give the book away, but just touching on some of the topics of the book. Obviously, Lincoln being from Texas, being a quarterback himself
Yeah.
in the town of Muleshoe, excuse me. So just talk about those early years and him going to walk on at Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up in Muleshoe, Texas, this tiny town of just a couple thousand people, and West Texas, the middle of nowhere, about an hour outside of Lick. He was a quarterback. He's a big guy for a team. I mean, he knew what he was doing as a quarterback. He was really good. Had a professional throwing motion and all that. He smart and cared about the game a lot. So he was figuring out how to be at it. And his sophomore year, in a preseason scrimmage, and throws an interception, then gets mad about it, chases the guy down, hits him hard as he can with his throwing shoulder, being an impulsive, teenager, and dislocates his shoulder, and he's never able to throw the same after that. But he still ends up being a pretty good high school quarterback, leads the team to state semifinals his year, and this is what they're doing in Lubbock with Mike Leach and the air raid offense down there. Wants to go see what that's all about, go be his quarterback. And so he walks onto the team, and he was a great guy. He knew the offense worked, and something Mike Leach told me that stuff was he didn't know just what they were supposed to do. He knew why they were supposed to do what they were supposed to do and all that, but he just didn't have the arm for it. He could throw the ball where it needed to go, needed to get there. And so Mike convinced him to play in and become basically assistant and become a coach at 19 years old, which is remarkable. And then it was off from there.
Yeah, that decision to give up being a player is certainly one that could not have been easy for him on one hand, because when you've done something as long as I'm sure he had, and that was something that I wrestled with as well. It's definitely not easy, but looking back on it, I'm sure he'll be the first to tell you he made the right decision and getting a jump start on his coaching career.
Yeah, it's easy to see it now, right? But I mean, at the time, anybody who's played sports has like a chance to be great at it, and has a chance to play the game, and you think you can. And the worst part is when you know how to play the game, but your body can't quite do it the level that you want it to. For some guys, it happens when they're younger, but it happens to every athlete at some point, and it's always terrible. And he won this. He spent a weekend mulling it over. He went on this long drive, Lubbock, about 6-7 hours south to Horseshoe Bay, Texas, in his truck with a bay, just kind of thinking it over. And his parents had a little vacation spot down there, Horseshoe Bay. Took a boat out, just kind of spent the weekend coming to terms with it, talking to people on the phone and all that. And he had to go through a real grieving process there with it. But by the end of driving back to Lubbock, knew he was like, all right, it's time to be coach. He said it was basically about it's just deciding you have to go ahead and grow up at 19, because especially think about it, it's not just not playing, it's also you go from being a player and a teammate to a coach. So that changes your social life in a big way as well. And so it was a lot he had to work through there in a short amount of time, for sure.
Yeah, he grew up in a hurry, overnight. That's why I was mentioning it would make a great movie, because of the fact that it's almost unbelievable. Is probably the fact that he goes from playing, and then he's a coach, and then he comes to East Carolina. And I know that he got an offer. I don't know if you know this, Brandon, but he got an offer from Larry Fedora to come to Carolina after we spanked them twice, but that's a whole other story. I had to get that shot in. But anyway, then he goes to Oklahoma. I'm like, oh my goodness. You're going from Texas Tech as a player, you're going to East Carolina very young, and next thing you know, you're offensive coordinator of Oklahoma, and then he moves into the head coaching role. It's just unbelievable to be one of the brand new teams of college football in just a matter of time.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable. And Lincoln, he talks a lot about the people who helped him get there. He had to grow up at 19. He had to grow up several different times. It's been a whole process, which again is very much like a movie. And it's really inspirational the way he has to go through hard things, make mistakes, then learn how to correct them and make it right, and then grow and keep just kind of becoming who he was. But he also wouldn't have been able to do all that without the types of people that were around him, which is a huge part of the story too. I mean, starting with Mike Leach. I mean, in a way, starting with this high school coach and his parents just being who they were, and the small town people being who they were, and then Mike Leach, and outside the box of a thinker enough to tell this 19-year-old to come be a coach with him, and then just kind of seeing that worked, and then Ruffin McNeil kind of taking him under his wing at Texas Tech at the end, and then at East Carolina, and then also had Magani Duncan, who basically helped the Big 12, and it's all kinds of amazing things in football. He passed away a few years ago, but he was really a big part of Lincoln and Ruffin McNeil's careers as well, just always advising them on what jobs to take, what moves to make, and things like that. And and then there's the players he worked with too. I mean, Lincoln, like, he knows that he's a smart guy, and he's been able to do some unique things, but he's also deeply aware that wouldn't be able to do it without the people around him that he's had from all these years.
Yeah, that relationship between Ruffin McNeil and Lincoln Riley is one that I'm sure you may have very well, because I've not had a chance to dive too deeply into the ebook that your publisher sent, but yeah, that relationship between them is one that you could have multiple chapters about for sure.
Yeah. No, it's special, man. I mean, they're like brothers. I mean, was there with him, as Mike Leach was getting for Texas Tech, and they were having a takeover right before that bowl game. Michigan State. Lincoln's 25 years old at the time, basically becoming an offensive coordinator, going to a bowl game, and Ruffin McNeil's kind of told him to do your thing. I mean, he believed him, and ended up winning the game. And then Ruffin hires at East Carolina. I mean, as soon as Ruffin hired at East Carolina, he calls Lincoln, tells him, come be his offensive coordinator here in Greenville. And then in Greenville, Ruffin gave him a lot of leeway. I mean, the rumors around Greenville always, Lincoln's real head coach and things like that. And I mean, Ruffin, that was kind of by design sometimes, according to Ruffin. I mean, I him a decent bit for Lincoln. And knew what Lincoln's potential was, and knew that he could do some special things. So he just wanted to give him the opportunity to work on that and to feel for what it would be like to team, and worked out pretty well for everybody.
Yeah, and you talk about some of the opportunities that Lincoln had. I've heard you reference this in other interviews you've done with the media over the last several weeks, in terms of North Carolina, Notre Dame, and different chances he had. But obviously he's turning down a lot of money, and then his sense of loyalty, Ruffin McNeil, and maybe also time and fit and play, all those things certainly factored in.
Yeah, I mean, it did. It means talking with Donnie, talking with Ruffin, and just kind of looking at the situation. I mean, he liked it here in Green too. I mean, he liked what he was able to do with the Pirate offense, and it was a great place for him to learn and grow. And I mean, they did some really special things here. And then it's just about finding the right situation. And I mean, Notre Dame came call, North Carolina came call. I mean, those aren't small phone calls. Those aren't small offers to turn down. And he turned them down for ECU. Turned them down for Ruffin, and as he's waiting for the right thing. I mean, Oklahoma comes calling. That's a little tough to turn down, though. That's you got that one if that one comes. And but he did, and it's just I don't know. It's especially as time goes on. I mean, it's just remarkable that he was able to come through Greenville and do what he did here for those 5 years. And I just thing that all comes back to me is just how fun it was, how much fun I tried to have with it. And it was just awesome.
And the very fact that Brandon, with obviously the fact that my understanding is his dream job would be somewhere, which that's what came true. To leave Greenville would be somewhere back close to the West Texas and that part of the area. And when he got Oklahoma, I said, okay, it's crazy. He's so young to get the offensive coordinator job, but I understand why he left East Carolina to go to Oklahoma, not only from the standpoint that it's a big time program, but also the fact that it's right closer to home where he grew up. And it's the same thing with his wife.
Yeah, I mean, they're both big time about family. I mean, Norman, Oklahoma was about the best close they're going to get when it comes to elite college football program, the Muleshoe Techs. And his wife's from Dimmitt, Texas, which is about 30 minutes or an hour from Muleshoe. So yeah, it really was just the perfect situation. And I don't think it would have left for anything less than, almost a situation. And I mean, yeah, like I got, and that's why like people always like, well, when's he going to go to the NFL? Things like I mean, you know what the future will hold, but it's, and Oma, like that, this just is very, very, very Lincoln Riley. I think that he loves football and he loves his family, and that's a place we can do both, to the best of his ability. But it's wild. Yeah, you're right. It's wild how it worked out.
It's almost like, I hate to use the term, the perfect storm, but it has been the perfect storm so far for Lincoln Riley.
I mean, then I add on top of that, Bob Stoops decided to retire when he got plenty of years left, you would think, and all that. I mean, it's just it was like, it's just, and that's what I loved about the book and why I wanted to write. I mean, he had just become a head coach at this young age, but there hadn't been as many like twists and turns, and he hadn't had to go go through so much. I don't know if it would in a book. It was. He's not old enough to have biography written yet. He's technically his biography, but I just look at it more in origins and story. It's just a great inspirational story. It's about football, and it's growing up as a human through football as much as it is about Lincoln Riley. And yeah, but it is. I love stuff like that. You look like just how things come together, and when it's a situation where all these just really interesting coincidences happen, and it's just, I don't know, that kind of stuff just gives me chill. Like I just love it.
How does I was going to ask you, how does Lincoln feel about the book? Have you talked to him?
I had a conversation with him personally, but he addressed it in a press conference. So the book came out, and when we had a conversation about me writing the book last year, I mean, it was basically the same things. He said, no problem with you or the book or the direction of anything like that. It sounds like it could be a positive thing. He felt funny about being part of a book at such a young age. And I talked to Leach about that a good bit. I mean, he said, it's not that Link's superstitious, but Mike said like he could see there being like superstitious aspect to like Mike was working on his book when he ended up getting Texas Tech, and like other coaches, you don't want to like look at how you've been able to do what you've been able to do because you're busy still trying to do more, that kind of thing. You don't want to jinx yourself almost by, oh, here's how I've done all this, and then like somehow rob you of your magic to keep the good stuff. So yeah, that was funny. Mike is always he's always a funny way of putting things. But yeah, but Lincoln, he hasn't read it, but doesn't seem to have any problem with it either. So I'll take that as a win. And hopefully other people read it and they have time with it. That was really the goal. It's just write something that'll give people a good time. And if you learn some stuff along the way, great. But either way, it's a nice escape from life for a minute.
Yeah, very envious of you, Brandon, getting to have those conversations with Mike Leach. I can only imagine how much fun that was. Definitely enjoy any opportunity you get to hear him speak to the media and read his book.
Yeah, he's a kid. He called me like 3 a.m. Hey, brother, got time to talk? Like, well, if this is when you can talk, yes, sir. We'll do it. But yeah, no, he's always interesting, Mike Leach.
One question I have for you is, do you have any plans to write any more books after Sooner?
Yeah, I'm working on stuff. Nothing in stone yet. So keeping all that kind of to the chest. But yeah, working on some things. Yeah.
You're keeping it close to your chest there.
Now, this may have already been touched on. I don't recall it, so I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. But approximately how long did it take you to write the book? And then also, as far as when you were in the process of writing the book, doing all this research, talking to people that had worked firsthand with Lincoln, what's a thing or two that may have surprised you that you learned about Coach in the process?
Yeah, writing the book was actually a pretty dicey process because my agent and I we got the proposal for it in front of publishers in spring of I guess last year 2019. And the publisher that we ended up going with, the deal was they wanted to head out by this football season, which meant to have it basically by the end of last year, which was for this book a really, really, really fast turnaround. Really would have had at least another six months to get it done. So that was that was so stressful sometimes getting that done. But it ended up great. Once we got the manuscript finished, I went out to New York and spent a few days with the publisher or editor at the publisher, just kind of going through the book in person and working on it more from there. And it ended up working out. It challenged me, stretched me a lot as a writer, and I feel like I learned a lot through that. So it was tough at the time, but I'm really glad I went through it, and then nice to go ahead and have the book out. And then as far as what I learned that might have surprised me, I think that, it's one of the hardest things for being a coach is like the family aspect. But I mean, and I talked with Mike Leach about this a lot. Lincoln's talked about this. I talked with him about it some. I was working on the article about in 2017, and it's like even Baker Mayfield said something about like, he always thought he'd want to be a coach, and he's done playing. He realized like how hard it was the families and how much time it takes away from the families. And so things seeing the ways they have their families into their work lives and things like that. And Lincoln, he does as good a job with that as he can. That was kind of the culture to Bob Stoops didn't want there to be like at your desk mentality. So Lincoln, he's always bringing his wife and his girls in for like, even if it's just for a few minutes, coming to the office, coming to the practices and do picnics and things like that. He take together as a family whenever they can. And he tries not to live at the office the way, a lot of college football coaches do. It's like you get your work done, and some weeks it takes a long time, and there's always going to be some gaps in your family. But it's he tries not to let the job be the entire life, which goes back to kind of just having fun with it and remembering you're more than a football coach. I think that's key to his success. He's more than a football coach, and he tries to live that.
No doubt, and I appreciate certainly what you coming on, and how can people get the book? I can't wait to read the book. I'm very excited about it. I know it's going to be a great read, especially it's great thinking about college football, and opening weekend here is awesome. And to think about, I have a special moment. My daughter was up here just a little bit ago making a cameo, but I'll never forget, I was watching a game and Lincoln was coaching, and I was watching Oklahoma one Saturday. And she looked at me. She said, "I love watching football with you, Daddy." And it was a great moment. So it reminded me of that. But certainly, it's great to have your daughter that's now 6 years old. She loves watching football with me.
Yeah, that's nice, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Amazon's got the book. Just type in Sooner, Brandon Sneed, or Sooner, Lincoln Riley, or however you want to do it. But Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere that's selling books, you should be able to get. Or brandonsneed.com/Sooner has got links to different places too. And if you follow me on Twitter, I do like ring giveaways sometimes at Brandon Sneed on Twitter, and maybe try to go mag you a free copy or something. But yeah, pretty much anywhere you get your books, you should be able to find it.
Brandon, speaking of a free copy, listeners, viewers, whenever you're checking this out, we will be providing some free copies for you. Brandon and his publisher were very nice to do so. So we will be giving those away via social media and other routes over the next few days. So stay tuned for that, and you can own a copy of Sooner and check out this book about Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Yeah, I'll get you one. It's great. I really think it's a book. It is. It's the story of Lincoln Riley, but it's just a good story. It's just something that could just be a good time for people. That was my goal with it. So let y'all be the judge, but so that's what I'm going with it.
It's going to be awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate the time, and good luck with the book. I know it's going to be a big success for you, and I'm excited to see what you got coming out next, and hopefully then we can have you back on.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man. Anytime.
No doubt. Brandon Sneed there, the offer of Sooner, and now a guy that's been very patient with us, Bubba, a guy that we've had on for the last couple of years. Here he is back with us. Bubba, you're on mute. If you can hear me, you're on mute.
Right. Yeah, can you hear me, guys?
I got you, Billy. Sorry, I muted myself. I'm broadcasting from a ballpark, so they had the music cranked up this morning, so I forgot to take myself off mute. But nonetheless, we appreciate you joining the show. Appreciate you being so flexible with us this morning. What I was saying is that I know the Mustangs are one of the teams in action today, which is why we wanted to have you on. You're on your way down to San Marcos as the Mustangs are taking on Texas State. So just talk about this matchup and just everything the Ponies have been dealing with in terms of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of surprising that we're here. It's still until one of my friends texted me and said, "I can't believe there's college football today." I said, "Hold on, let's wait until toe meets leather." I don't know what we're gonna, deal with. Maybe somebody tested positive or something like that, and then it all goes, awry. But it looks like we're gonna have college football today between SMU and Texas State, 3:30 on ESPN. And for SMU, they've handled this pandemic probably as well as anyone in the country. They've had very few positive cases. They've had very few issues. They have probably only had to take a pause once, and that was around all the social justice and injustice conversations that were going on around the country and are going on around the country. But overall, I mean, they've been really, really attentive to detail in terms of how they can bring these guys on campus to practice and prepare for a season. And they've just done a terrific job. And expectations are high. Everybody seems to know that with SMU this year, after expectations are even higher with him running the show at quarterback. This could be the first game of what could be a really special season for them.
And Billy, that's one of the things we talked about at East Carolina and beyond, is the very fact that how are we going to deal with, with COVID-19, and how you can have, I can't imagine what these coaches are going through the country. I know you're there with SMU, and just what they're going through. The fact that you start a season, it's like having it seems like a whole bunch of bye weeks, a whole bunch of weeks off, potentially. Hopefully that won't happen. And like you said, I thought that was really funny when you said that about, hey, wait a minute, we haven't gotten there yet. It's a good point. We still have some cases a few hours for kickoff for some teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about SMU too is they've just basically moved their whole operation outside. I mean, the concourse for the football stadium right now, Gerald Ford Stadium, is their locker room. That's where they show up during the week for practice. That's where they show up to change. They show up already with their their shorts or their girdles on, and kind of their under gear. And then they put on the pads and they put on the helmets, and then they go practice. So it's pretty wild what SMU's done to just create as much space between players as possible, to limit exposure or potential exposure. Their contact tracing is unbelievable in terms of what they're doing with that. I mean, I was talking to a few of our subscribers on ponystampede.com, and people were saying, well, how'd they do? Is everybody good? And well, I did hear that they had all negative tests from the tests that they took on Friday before heading down to San Marcos, which is great. But there's still going to be a few players, probably each game, that for whatever reason get put into contact tracing and they have to quarantine for about 10 days. And so it's just one of the things that college teams are going to have to deal with around the country, is the chance that, okay, one of your players could have come into contact with someone, and if the school's doing it right, they're putting them into quarantine and keeping an eye on them, and then testing before clearing them to go back to practice.
That's crazy. And that's one thing I wanted to ask about. I'm sorry, real quick, Bubba. I want to ask about contact tracing, because I know East Carolina, Bubba, certainly with the doctors we have, with the Brody School of Medicine at ECU, their Invited Medical Center, those folks have been tremendous. But, one question I would have for you, Billy, is the very fact when you said they've been a good job of it, maybe like at ECU and SMU are doing a good job with, certainly with contact tracing and following the letter of the law, so to speak. But I'm wondering how many, like Kyle, our co-host, I'm wondering how many are actually following it to the letter of the law.
Yeah, that's something we'll just have to see. I mean, we saw SMU's game against TCU next week already get canceled because of a huge COVID outbreak with the Frogs. And I mean, it wasn't all contact tracing. It was, a ton of positive tests from what I've heard and been told. And that's unfortunate. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy to avoid this thing, but it takes a strong level of commitment to avoid it. And if your players aren't on board with it, it's going to be very difficult to run your college football season.
Billy, diving into your archives there, you talk about ponystampede.com. in preparation for this interview. We certainly didn't plan it this way in terms of having you right after Brandon Sneed, who just released his book on Lincoln Riley sooner, as I'm sure you may have heard there before we brought you on. But Garrett Riley, Lincoln's younger brother, is the new offensive coordinator there in Dallas. And in that article that you put out late January or so, you were just talking about how Garrett says that the offense is going to be simplified some. We know how explosive the Ponies were a season ago. They have a veteran quarterback. So just talk about all the pieces and exactly what that simplification is.
Yeah, I think it goes back to Sonny Dykes' roots in the air raid, and I don't necessarily see them going full air raid this year, but they are going to try to simplify things. I think last year at times, under Rhett Lashley's direction, maybe things got a little complicated, and it was difficult for them to develop a rhythm at times. And I think Sonny really wanted to simplify the offense, and that's why he brought in Garrett Riley. He wanted to bring in somebody who came from a similar background of just repping plays and building on the fundamentals, and then adding a run game component to it, which Garrett, coming from App State, where he got that 1 year of experience, being there with that strong rushing attack, they feel like they've added and upgraded in terms of their playbook and what they're going to be bringing to the table offensively. So it might not look too different, but those simplifications are more so in the background of the air raid in terms of passing game concepts. But like you mentioned, Shane Buechele's back. He's going to have one of the best seasons in college football. I mean, I would be shocked if he wasn't among the best passers in the country. And he's got tons of weapons. He's got Reggie Robertson, who missed the last 5 games of the year last year, but he was one of 3 wide receivers when he went down with a foot injury to be averaging over 100 yards a game in college football, which is pretty unbelievable. And then they lose James Prochet, who's an all-time record-setting receiver at SMU, but they, in my opinion, and this is no disrespect to James, but they upgraded with a terrific athlete in Danny Gray, and somebody who is actually just a step faster probably than Reggie Robertson, and they think he's going to come in right away and catch 100 balls and go over 1,000 yards and be an instant impact guy. And then they have one of the best tight ends in the country in Kylan Granson, who led the country in receiving tight ends for a touchdown, or for receiving touchdowns for a tight end. So they've got pieces, they've got guys in place, and they're just ready to roll.
Yes, sir.
Taking a look at this matchup, Billy, Jake Spavital going into his second year there at Texas State. He's someone became a head coach in the 34-35 going into his, like I said, second season at San Marcos. Prior to that, he had been OC at A&M, going back to the Johnny Manziel years, I think, and then also West Virginia, among other places. So what are you expecting with this ball game? The Ponies are a 21-point favorite, depending on where you look. So how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, they're big favorites. They're heavy favorites. Last year, SMU ended up pulling away in the second half. They won 48-17. I think both teams are better than they were a year ago, quite frankly, and I think you'll see that reflected. I think SMU is certainly a team that, with its veteran players on offense especially, I don't think we're going to see the slow start we saw last year. They've been in fall camp a while. They've been repping things a while, and I think they're just ready to go play somebody else for sure. But in terms of the matchup overall, Texas State kind of went in and took a little bit of a playbook approach to what SMU did last year. They brought in quite a few transfers. They have a transfer starting at quarterback in Brady McBride, who's a good player, good athlete. If you want a little tidbit on Brady, his dad, Joe McBride, is one of the most well-known Texas high school football coaches, but his dad, Joe, played for Spike Dykes at Texas Tech when Sonny was growing up. So it really kind of all comes full circle in that respect. And Jake Spavital was Sonny's OC at Cal for a year, and they know each other very, very well. So I think both teams take a step forward this year. I don't think that's today for Texas State. They're going to be facing an SMU team that is really upgraded athletically over the past year. They've tweaked their defense to reflect that as well. And I just think SMU is going to be able to really take care of business in this one. I'd be surprised if this one is in doubt for very long for SMU, quite frankly.
And Billy, as far as you're talking about SMU, but the league as itself with American, how do you feel about things coming up in for the season 2020? Looks like that a lot of improved teams coming back, top to bottom. The league is pretty stout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think East Carolina is going to be improved. I mean, you guys saw what they did to SMU last year in Dallas, and just didn't come out on top. But what a game! And I think they're going to be better as well. But in terms of like the top part of the league, I would think it's SMU, Memphis, and Cincinnati that are probably going to be in that mix, for that conference championship game appearance. I'm not necessarily sold on UCF being the cream of the crop. They're the conference favorite in the preseason, which I'm just a little surprised about. Quite honestly, I think Memphis, while they have a new coaching staff, they've still got Brady White and Kenny Gainwell opting out. It was a big loss for them. I'm interested to see how that impacts them, besides just kind of the obvious, him being a great football player. But Cincinnati's a very, very good team. I think UCF's a good team. I'm not necessarily sure they should be the favorite going into the year. And then with SMU, I think just all the veteran talent they have. They lost their 2 losses in conference last year were just by a touchdown each on the road. And I mean, without Reggie Robertson in either one of those games as well. So SMU special teams are a lot better than last year as well. They upgraded with a graduate transfer kicker that just getting to watch practice a few times. It couldn't go much worse than it did for SMU last year, but he should be a serious upgrade at the position. So I'm looking at those 3 teams at the top. I don't think Houston's ready to take the next step forward. I could see Tulane taking a step forward, and of course, the usual suspects like Navy will be right there as well.
Yeah, you bring up Houston. We love having Sam Raz from the podcast on. So the Scott and Holman podcast, I should say. But when we've had him on, or we will have him on here in the near future, I feel certain. And when we do, it's going to be interesting to get his take, see how Cougar fans are. Dana Holgerson making an awful lot of money, $4.5 million. Will be interesting to see if the Cougars don't take that step forward, like you're saying, how patient folks are there in Houston.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Tillman Fertitta believe that they fire 9-wood coaches over there in Houston, and I know last year was kind of like it's almost like a tank year, even though you don't get a draft pick. I guess they, with Derek Gang opting out, and that, or not opting out, but redshirting, and that didn't necessarily go as they planned, which I was kind of surprised that was the route they took, thinking that he'd come back. But this year is kind of, I think, the year that after all of that, I think Dana really thinks they can compete. I'm just not so sure that they're going to be able to with this league. I mean, it's a tough league. And you saw it early in the summer, I think, with the shutdown for them. They're not necessarily a program right now that is incredibly disciplined and well run. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that culture develops over the next couple of years. Houston does a pretty good job of getting talent in there. So it's not always the case of, okay, they're just falling off talent-wise, but just overall, it's a difficult position that Dana's in after last year, and he's being asked to produce, and I'm just not so sure they're ready to do that.
No question about it, Billy. That's the very fact. I was talking about a situation with a friend of mine years ago about a person being married to his job, and I said, well, it's kind of like A-Rod. The reason when A-Rod was still playing, I said the Yankees gave him a lot of money, and because they gave him a lot of money, the expectations are extremely high. And the same thing with Dana. I mean, I know Sam and them, they feel like they're in Houston, that they're a power program, unfortunately, in G5. And so they're trying to upgrade facilities and get these great coaches in and bring in Dana back. But the price tag was a lot. And so if you get $4.5 million a year, you better be winning double-digit games this season, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the expectation for a Luke Fickell. That's probably the expectations at UCF and Memphis, and Sonny Dykes is turning that into that at SMU. But outside of Fickell now with his new contract, I mean, none of those guys are making what close to what Dana's making. So yeah, expectations for him are through the roof, and for good reason.
And certainly with the league looking at East Carolina, Billy, everybody says we're a year away. We're a year away. It's such a cliche in college sports and sports in general. But if you look at the talent and you look at the recruiting, I know you're recruiting expert, obviously, for SMU. But when you look at the talent that's coming in and what we already had, and then with the coaching staff, with the success, Mike Houston, these guys are next year will be seniors and juniors. One of the youngest teams last year. And next year, they're going to be one of the oldest teams. They have the talent. They just didn't have the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Mike Houston's program showed a lot when they came to Dallas and gave SMU everything it could handle. That's the type of program he runs. That's just, I mean, how it is. And he's a really, really good coach who's got the ball rolling down the hill in a positive direction for them. And it's starting to pick up speed, and you can see that. And like you mentioned, they're going to be a veteran bunch here, much more so than last year, and especially the year after. But yeah, I mean, that's just a reflection on the program he runs and how he's got it going.
Earlier, Billy, you talked about the scheduling adjustment for next week, and with the battle for the Iron Skillet being at least temporarily postponed. I didn't see the exact wording on that, and correct me if that was a cancellation. But talk about the schedule as a whole. What other adjustments have there been, if any?
Yeah, SMU moved their game against SFA to the 26th of September to allow that rescheduling of the TCU game that was originally postponed or canceled. And now it looks like SMU is probably going to have an open date next week rather than going over to Fort Worth. And but overall, the SMU schedule's intact. They'll play North Texas, and then they'll get into conference play.
Billy, we appreciate you coming on this morning. Really appreciate you being flexible with us as we dealt with some different things in terms of technical issues and so forth. But enjoyed having you on the show, and we'll definitely love to have you back on later on in the football season.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. We'll do it again soon for sure.
All right, Billy, take care. Drive safe. Keep it between the lines, and we'll see you again soon. All right, that's Billy. All right, Billy and Body there, and Inside the Slant. I tell you what, Bubba, what a great show. You did a marvelous job. I know that it's like, speaking of herding cats, we had obviously guests and trying to work around technical difficulties, but that's what's great about. I'll never forget. This makes me think. I'll tell a quick story, but in 1996, when I started out in broadcasting, I'll never forget my first season. I had no clue about what, how you're such an ECU guy, and being that I graduated there, I was so excited about covering the Pirates.
Don't forget to visit our concession stand, as you can get hamburgers, hot dogs, or chicken tenders, and our Labor Day.
I'll say it really fast to let you talk, but just nod whenever he's done talking. But anyway, so I'm sorry. It was just a story I was going to tell real fast about how you get excited about the college football season like we're doing this. You're covering the Pirates. You're a year out of school, basically, so it's such a dream job to be doing that. And we literally started at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting ready, for the first show. And I had to, obviously take a shower. You drive really fast, get Jeff Charles on the air. Then you break everything down. You take everything to Fort Game Day right there outside of Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium and the parking lot. And they had, there was a big deck right there near that famous tailgate field behind the stadium. And we set that up, broke everything down, watched the game. Then the fourth quarter, about 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, every game, I still get kind of an urge, because that's when I used to have to leave to go to the tailgate show, run up to the press box, get the equipment, and then go do the interviews, bring it back up to the press box, the double wide in the sky. And then I was actually DJing downtown at a place called the Sports Objective. So my game days were from 6 a.m. sports pad 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. was basically, it was almost a 24-hour period I was up on a Saturday.
Yeah, I can only imagine, how you guys were running on fumes doing those shows back in the day. Just taking a look around, looking at today's schedule. We obviously talked about several of the games that are taking place. Marshall and Eastern Kentucky at 1 o'clock. Now, who would have thought that this game would be taking place in the first place, much less at 1 o'clock on ESPN? And that's no offense to Marshall or Eastern Kentucky, but it's just a crazy world that we're living in right now. So that will be going on at 1 o'clock on ESPN, like I mentioned, up in Huntington at Edwards Stadium. Army in Middle Tennessee at 1:30. And then that one, of course, is up in West Point, SMU and Texas State at 4:30. North Texas and Houston Baptist at 7:30. And then tonight you have another AAC team in action, Memphis taking on Arkansas State at 8 o'clock. And then UTEP taking on Stephen F. Austin at 9 o'clock. So you have 6 games today, and then that BYU Navy game on Monday night.
Going to be fantastic. So happy to be a part of college football season for the 2020 year. And the season is so great to finally be here. And maybe the Pirates, the first game, obviously the folks watching this broadcast would know will be September 26th, UCF. No fans, unfortunately. We hope that by October things will the next update, I think that with Governor Cooper will be October the 2nd, somewhere around there. So for phase 2.5, we'll see how that turns out. We're praying that fans will in October. I know that sometime it may be November before we have fans is what I'm guessing. I don't know anything, so don't quote me on that, but that's my guess. If I had a guess, it would be sometime in November before we can have fans in the stands. Certainly more of a respectable crowd, maybe like the 20-25% mark that Bubba's talked so much about. And we love having you guys on. Don't forget to watch all our content. We have a lot of stuff up there, 50 Pirates in 50 days. We have obviously on Facebook Live and archived on Facebook, I should say, and YouTube. And then, of course, we have those 50 Pirates in 50 days we have on SoundCloud and Anchor. And all our broadcasts that we do we put out as podcasts. We've been doing it for 2.5 years now, officially, Bubba, thanks to you, sir. But we actually have those on pretty much everywhere you can listen to your favorite podcasts. And I want to remind folks, by the way, Bubba, something we don't do all the time before we get out of here, to like our Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at Richmond David. At the Sports OBJ. Can you say hi? She wants to have her own show, so she's watching her dad right now. Do that. Say, what's your name? Mackenzie. But anyway, thank you guys so much for being a part of the broadcast today. And my daughter Mackenzie for making a few cameos. Appreciate her very much. And all our great guests, Bubba, thank you so much for putting this show together. It was awesome. And we look forward to be back again real soon. All right.
No doubt, Dave. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And hopefully we'll have a great day of college football. And look forward to just who would have thought we would be excited about having 6 games on the schedule, but that's the case. And I'm ready to watch some football.
All right, guys, until next time, you've been watching and listening to The Sports Objective. Go Pirates!